some dinner. Tina, you fat lard, come get 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 some dinner. get some dinner. Tina, you fat lard, come 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 get some dinner. get some dinner. Tina, you fat lard, come 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 get some dinner. get some dinner. Tina, you fat lard, come 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 get some dinner.
Do you want to waste the best part of your strength in a useless admiration of the past, from which you will emerge exhausted, diminished, trampled on? This is a quote from the Futurist Manifesto, written by Italian poet Filippo Tommaso Marinetti.
Alright, so we're going to watch... Hey, my name is Jamie, and I just realized I thought I was streaming for like almost half an hour, but actually, y'all were just watching fucking streaming soon. God damn it, the coming soon, I'm going to be here soon page. So welcome, my name is Jamie and I can't play guitar. This is the daily hangout. We're watching videos, we're playing guitar, we're doing the damn thing. It's June 20th. This is part 3. We're simulcasting on YouTube and Twitch. So if you're on YouTube, hello. If you're on Twitch, hello. Everyone is welcome. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch, and hit the bell on YouTube if you want to be notified when we go live. You'll get a notification on all of those platforms if you subscribe, so you never miss one of our daily streams. We like to hang out. We like to watch popular internet videos, or at the very least internet videos that interest us and have a lot to do with things going on in the world. Oftentimes we will comment on them, give some context if we have it. If not, a lot of times we are playing and learning guitar. This is a good excuse for you as well, but us especially, to spend some time learning something, and that something for us is guitar. We like to spend at least 30 minutes a day streaming, and that's just basically a good excuse for us to sit here and play guitar and entertain y'all and hang out and watch some videos. It's a 3 or 4-fer. It's not just a 2-fer. So my name is Jamie. I can't play guitar. Welcome to the stream. This is the first video of the stream. We thought we were streaming for almost half an hour. God damn it. Anyway, welcome. The end of the internet is here. 1C. 2 is the channel. 23 minutes. Let's fucking go.
What can you find in an old picture except the painful contortions of the artist trying to break uncrossable barriers which obstruct the full expression of his dream? To admire an old picture is to pour our sensibility into a funeral urn, instead of casting it forward with violent spurts of creation and action. Do you want to waste the best part of your strength in a useless admiration of the past, from which you will emerge exhausted, diminished, trampled on? This is a quote from the Futurist Manifesto, written by Italian poet Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, and published in 1909. With this work, he and his cohort announced to the world a new movement that fetishized industrial progress and man's triumph over nature. Recognizing that the world had entered into a new age of unprecedented technological innovation, they unabashedly declared that humanity should free itself from the shackles of the traditions, tastes, and morals of the past in pursuit of, well, the future. Progress, to them, should come at any expense, even that of human life.
Ooh.
In addition to valorizing war and violence, the core Italian futurists were also ardent nationalists, seeing this movement as Italy's opportunity to reassert itself onto the world stage, instead of acting as a sort of nursing home for antiquity. Oh, and they also hated feminism and women broadly, so it should come to no surprise then that many of these Italian futurists became fascists in the coming decades. But back to the quote. The futurists weren't just a let the past die sort of group. They wanted to kill the past. Literally demolishing museums and libraries was a core tenet of their manifesto. And while the proper futurist movement peaked back in the 20s and 30s, you can still find elements of their philosophy permeating throughout our culture today. Specifically this one core theme, this reckless contempt for what came before. It's something that hasn't completely gone away. And I see that theme popping up time and time again, and to be frank, it troubles me.
It's scary, right?
I don't know if it's just me, but the last few years of the internet have felt pretty stagnant. Maybe it's nostalgia goggles kicking in, but I feel like the current internet climate feels much less optimistic and exciting compared to the 2000s and the 2010s. Back then, we saw an explosion of new web-based services and products that were redefining entire industries. Everything from managing sales funnels to doing taxes to watching movies. The sky was the limit. But now, markets have become saturated. The
Hell yeah.
competitive fronts between different companies have become increasingly entrenched. And so, in pursuit of continuously increasing profits, companies have turned to squeezing more money from the end user, while the industry as a whole desperately searches for its next iPhone moment. Many companies and investors thought they were onto something with the metaverse or putting blockchain
His hair
technology
is so
into
bad.
everything
Hold
for
on,
absolutely no fucking reason.
hold on.
Or
Come on. Mark Zuckerberg's hair. Look at this hairline, dog. What do you? Come on. That's a wig. What is that? Why do you have so much money and you can't fix your own hair? It's so bad. You look like a robot.
Many companies and investors thought they were onto something with the metaverse or putting blockchain technology into everything for absolutely no fucking reason, or whatever other buzzword was being thrown
Dude,
around. For a bit,
the
it seemed
crash
like
of
the
that
emperor
was
had
so
no
quick. I'm
clothes,
sure it'll
but
come back.
Looks
But
like the bubble has finally popped on that Silicon Valley dream. And now the industry has looked to AI as the next major frontier for tech. But as impressive as generative
money.
chatbots like ChatGPT can be, AI isn't the saving grace for the internet. And in a lot of ways, its novelty is distracting us from some really worrying trends that are making the internet a far worse place to be.
I agree. Go
There
on.
isn't really an overarching thesis to this video. This is mostly just a collection of stories that really bother me and seem to suggest that the internet is headed for a far less interconnected future, where all websites become walled gardens, where every last dime is squeezed out of each individual user, and where the internet as a whole becomes less useful and less usable.
Uh-oh. The APIs.
Oh, Twitter. Oh boy, Twitter. What a riot it's been. Ever since Elon Musk took the company's reins back in October, it's been nothing but questionable decision after questionable decision. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to rewrite this script because of some new batshit insane thing that Twitter decided to do. Twitter's advertising revenue in the US is down 59% compared to last year, following a mass exodus of advertisers, and Twitter Blue has only been able to scrounge back $11 million of the hundreds of millions of dollars that the company potentially lost in revenue. And that number is probably pretty outdated. Newer data has shown that more than half of Twitter Blue's earliest subscribers are no longer subscribed to the service. Musk has made it clear that he wants to transform Twitter into X, an omnipotent super app, your all-in-one place for communication, finances, and media consumption akin to WeChat in China. And we've seen Twitter go full steam ahead into transforming itself. Twitter Inc. has been renamed X Corp. Musk has announced that more robust DMs and video calls will be eventually coming, and users can now trade stocks on Twitter in a partnership with eToro. However, in all honesty, I think the most significant and telling change that Twitter has implemented so far revolves around access to its API. For those of you who don't know, API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it's the protocol that's used to communicate between different computer programs. So if you need to push data or send a command from one system to another, anything from Google Sheets to Salesforce to Stripe, you would use an API for it.
APIs, he's probably going to explain, but APIs are basically the access protocol, the back-end codes into a closed app. So if your favorite app can't do something, like the bemoaning of my life, where my iPhone cannot accept, it can only output video, it can't accept video without extensive extra devices. There's some new devices that are like $150, $200 that you can make it into a monitor and it can accept video, but that's with a bunch of fucking extra equipment. APIs on jailbroken and Android devices can accept HDMI inputs. So basically this can be a camera or whatever monitor. You can watch whatever the fuck you want through HDMI on it. But because of API access being locked down to Kingdom fucking Kong on come on Apple products, no go for iPhones, stock iPhones anyway.
APIs are pretty ubiquitous throughout the internet, and for consumer-grade online services,
also,
it's pretty rare that
had to do with the Reddit
behind a paywall.
Reddit.
And this is especially the case for social media. But back in
boycott.
February of this year, Twitter did just that. Developers and researchers were stunned to discover that they would have to start paying to access Twitter's API. Hundreds of accounts announced that they
this
were
is
shutting
new.
down, all because of this change. From the National Weather Service sending out weather updates to local transportation authorities sending out transportation updates, and of course, fun gimmick accounts. Musk claimed that the reason for this was to limit bot spam, but developers have claimed that the real spam comes from scripts injected into Twitter's web client or from stolen API keys. And while some of the original API plans have been walked back, like through the reintroduction of a free tier, albeit an extremely limited one, this is, in addition to removing API access to third-party clients, a clear signal that the future of Twitter will be more and more hostile to its developer community and that it wants to become a walled garden for the internet. Also, something really funny that I found is that in order to request access to Twitter's enterprise API, you have to fill out a fucking Google form. It sends you to a Google form. People who are going to be paying $42,000 a month are sent to a Google form. It's so funny. In the wake of this change, we've seen Reddit follow suit. Reddit will begin charging for access to its API, pricing out many developers who manage third-party clients for the site, even ones that offer tools to help communities manage and moderate themselves that Reddit flatly does not offer out of the box. Reddit's reasoning for this is twofold. For one, it has rightly identified that there is a lot of useful, easily accessible information on the platform. I mean, how many times have you gone to search something on Google and appended Reddit to the end of your query? Which is something we're going to discuss later, by the way. But anyway, because of this, Reddit is hoping to protect itself from data scraping. OpenAI previously revealed that Reddit was indeed one of the sources used to train its AI models, and Reddit doesn't want that to happen again without getting cut. Also, as Reddit continues to putt around the idea of going public, it wants to find new ways to monetize itself. In case it's not obvious, all of this not only makes things worse for developers, but also for users. It limits what...
I'd like to see what he has to say, because I always search shit with Reddit at the end. Not like, well, it would probably be embarrassing to go through my search history. Both, my boss and I have talked about it before. It's effective, but awkward to do.
Done on these sites, and advances the idea that there can and should only be one way, one set of approved channels for a user to interact with the site. It makes these sites less useful by eliminating automated accounts that supply good information. It limits the data that you can get about your own and others' internet presence. It limits the research that can be done on these sites and on their communities. And it flat out limits human creativity by restricting developers from creating different and unique user experiences. Back in May of this year, Google announced that it will be deleting inactive Google accounts en masse, specifically those that haven't seen any activity in 2 years. Countless emails, attachments, Google Drive files, photos, and more will be deleted at the end of this year. And what struck me the most was just how poorly this change was announced. It was just casually dropped in a security blog post, and the lack of detail had people speculating as to whether this would mean that entire channels on YouTube would be removed if the associated Google account hadn't been active. The fact that they only updated the blog post after this backlash just shows that they really didn't care enough to think about this the first go-round, or maybe that they were actually thinking about deleting YouTube videos at first. But God, even after they clarified these changes, things still look pretty bad. Imagine you have a dead family member and you didn't know how to recover their account until it was too late. Or, I don't know, you were in a coma, or God forbid you were imprisoned for whatever reason. Imagine your Google account, the crux of your online identity, being erased in an instant. Poof, gone forever. You have to start from scratch and also fight an uphill battle, proving that you are who you say you are. Twitter has also announced that they'll be doing the same thing. They would begin purging inactive accounts. Whereas Google at least had the courtesy to say that it was for security reasons, it seems like Twitter is literally just trying to trim off as much fat as they can. Their official policy states that an account risks deletion if it's inactive for 30 days, a month. Imgur also decided recently that a bunch of old photos and forum content just wasn't worth keeping around anymore, despite these forums being the original reason Imgur got popular in the first place. All the while, streaming services like Disney+, HBO Max, now dubbed Just Max, Hulu, and Showtime have removed access to dozens and dozens of movies and TV shows. And it's not just content that they've licensed from other companies, it also includes movies and shows produced in-house. By limiting their libraries to current or uber-popular content, these companies can take advantage of certain tax breaks in some cases, or eliminate the costs of licensing fees or residuals that they pay out to
Yeah, I
the
was really
content
pissed.
creators. Literally,
I think everyone's been really pissed about this, but like some of the most egregious that I've seen, my family likes to watch Sesame Street, which when it was licensed or sold or whatever happened to HBO, people were very worried. Fans of the brand and fans of the brand being a public brand were worried, and that included me. I'm a huge fan. I don't know if I have anything in frame that is specifically. I think I have something. Hold on one sec. Yeah, I have some stamps. So, big Sesame Street fan. Didn't take me long to find something Sesame Street themed. And I was definitely worried when they licensed with HBO. And they're one of the shows where they have the ability to have a massive back catalog and just put it on Max. And that would make a lot of people very happy. And this makes me mad actually about a lot of children's shows, but they've done it across the board. They haven't even just done it to children's shows where they either cancel them or won't carry all the seasons because I honestly believe the decision is just made like the kids don't care. And the kids might not specifically be looking to watch a serialized version of things, or you might think they might not want to, but it's just kind of disingenuous to have like one single season of your newest flagship show Last Week Tonight, as well as cutting, 50 or 40 odd seasons of Sesame Street out for very little reason other than cost cutting. When you buy a subscription to a legacy media network that has this huge back catalog, I think pretty much everyone expects that back catalog to be there. And a few shows are excusable, but a large portion of almost all shows being absent is like, how do you even watch some of this stuff is the question.
less than 6 months after wrapping up its first season, the Disney Plus fantasy series Willow was pulled from streaming. That's just crazy. I mean, everyone complains about the content, Mel, but it's just so unbelievably cruel to see a piece of art that people have spent years of their lives working on being tossed away like it's nothing. All this while, there's a writer's strike going on, mind you, to add insult to injury. This also means that, in many cases, there's no longer a legal means of watching this content. And while these sites are deleting content of their own volition, other organizations are being forced to remove content from the web. Another pillar of the Internet Archive, was dealt a major blow in a lawsuit back in March. Book publishers argued that there was no legal basis for the Internet Archive to lend out digital books, even through controlled digital lending, and the courts agreed. While the Internet Archive is appealing, it's still so tragic to think that such a wealth of knowledge could be rendered utterly useless. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak to the particulars of the case with any authority, but boy, does it feel like publishers would outlaw brick-and-mortar libraries if they could. Free and open access to information is at the core of the internet's ethos, and well, it's just so sad to see so much of that information going up in smoke. Companies only see value in data that makes them money, and so these accounts and their associated data are designated as digital access. If anything, these actions by major online platforms highlight the fragility of our digital experiences and serve as a reminder of the unfortunate impermanence of the information we create and consume daily. The state of online search right now is pretty disgusting. If you innocently type something into Google, Google then blasts you with a deluge of ads, carousels, and widgets that it thinks you want. And then once you get to the organic search results, it's filled to the brim with generic, soulless, keyword-ridden listicles that, more often than not, frankly don't answer your question. It's quite the development that in the world of online search, the burden of curation has shifted back to the user. This is all due to the ubiquity of search engine optimization, or SEO, the process of formatting and writing web content in ways that appeal to search engine crawlers and algorithms. SEO, however, is less straightforward than it sounds. In reality, search engine optimization as a field is constantly changing, feeds off of infrequent and ambiguous hints that Google reveals about its algorithm, requires ample trial and error, and as you may have guessed, is fraught with ostensibly know-it-all gurus and a hefty dose of snake oil. I'm not alone for my contempt for how SEO practices have sterilized and homogenized the internet. However, in many ways, it's a monster of Google's own making. As one writer puts it, Google has been playing an endless game of whack-a-mole, trying to combat SEO marketers from abusing Google's algorithm for their own benefit by giving their sites all the trappings of authoritative content. And naturally, with more traffic, you're able to make more money by serving ads or by funneling users into using your product or service. And even on sites with useful content, you oftentimes have to scroll through a whole dissertation to find what you're looking for. Because many sites cater to the tastes of Google's algorithm and not the end user, trying to find answers on the internet frequently sucks. Like I said before, more often than not, you're more likely to find what you're looking for by appending Reddit to the end of your query and then digging through forums. Alternatively, many youngsters have started using TikTok as a search engine, seeking more authentic and personal sources of information that way. Even Google has admitted that around 40% of Gen Zers go to TikTok or Instagram instead of Google for certain search queries. And it's not just the results are less helpful, there are also dangerous implications for internet history. In the pursuit of hosting evergreen content that'll reliably attract an audience long term, articles and blog posts are constantly rewritten. New hyperlinks, better headings, better headlines, better copy. This is all done to make the content more marketable and to continue to drive users to it. However, there's something sad about history being rewritten with little to no disclosure. Web publishers also frequently prune content on their sites that is out of date or not in vogue. As another writer puts it, this all results in an internet with no institutional memory or accountability. So when Google and Bing announced that generative AI responses will be taking center stage in search going forward, some people hailed this as an incredible development, hoping that would actually give users the answers that they're looking for more quickly. Others have hailed it as the death of SEO, as these generative AI responses, while they cite where they get their information from, will kill off a good chunk of organic search traffic. And from the looks of things, it looks like generative AI responses in search just flat out sucks and causes more problems than it solves. It flat out plagiarizes some responses, and the parts that it doesn't plagiarize are often just wrong because it just string words together that it thinks are likely to appear next to each other. In order for it to deliver the quality of user experience people expect, it would be better sometimes just for it to flat out plagiarize, but that comes at the cost of screwing over the people who made that information available in the first place. Also, since it's scraping sites that are often written to be optimized for search, I expect that we'll see plenty of situations where it's just going to be garbage in, garbage out. I mean, there are situations where users themselves can't even find the information that they're looking for, and Google/Bing's generative AI models are going to be looking at the exact same web pages that the users are going through. So I sincerely doubt that these generative responses will be able to do what users can't.
Jeez, this is just like a fucking nightmare.
Google and Bing have both announced that they'll be placing ads into their generative search responses, meaning that even when these generative responses turn out to be useful, they'll be riddled with ads, making the user experience all the more tedious. Google and Bing are putting more junk in between the user and the information they're looking for. Sounds absolutely horrendous. And essentially are punishing sites that have good information for having good information. As far as I can tell, when these models have good information to work with, they can do some pretty amazing things. But that's just not how the internet exists right now. Maybe it's a technical problem that can be solved over time, but nonetheless, it's still pretty shameful and condescending for companies to push something so broken onto the masses so quickly and to greatly overpromise on its capabilities. Back when search engines first came onto the scene, they solved a very specific problem and made all corners of the internet accessible in one place. But today, it feels like that most search engines have abandoned that commitment to user centricity. And while Google has been taking steps to provide search results that connect users to real-world experiences, it's obvious that connecting users with this sort of content directly is not Google's priority. Only through a commitment to user empowerment can we hope to restore the value and utility of online search in an era dominated by algorithms and AI. Recently, some YouTube users have gotten notices that they'll be required to disable their ad block going forward or otherwise opt into YouTube Premium. I'm a little surprised that they haven't done this a while ago, but yet again, we're at a crossroads where the user experience continues to suffer. But honestly, there's a more insidious and potentially harmful set of changes happening that I haven't really heard anyone discuss too much, and that's Chrome's transition to its Manifest v3 extension platform. A manifest file is one of the many files required in a Chrome extension and defines the level of access to browser data and system resources that it requires, as well as its capabilities. Back in 2018, Google announced the beginning of their transition to Manifest v3, replacing Manifest v2. And while the timeline of this transition has been delayed a handful of times, there are some serious consequences associated with these new specifications. The big one being that it will undermine the effectiveness of adblock extensions and extensions that anonymize user information. While Google is asserting that these changes to the manifest are for the sake of privacy, something that many developers dispute, it conveniently will also have the effect of having websites show more ads, which is what Google's whole business model is based around. And the scariest part is that these changes won't be limited to just Chrome. They'll affect all Chromium-based browsers like Edge, Brave, Opera, and more. The only web browser of note that has pushed back against these changes is Firefox, saying that they'll continue to support web request blocking features from Manifest v2, which are the foundation of anti-tracking extensions and ad blockers. But that's what we get when one company essentially becomes the gatekeeper for access to the internet. Once they have that power, it's only a matter of time before they use it for their own benefit. So, like I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of futurists did become fascists later in life. However, that was not a universal rule. Futurism actually found a home on all sides of the political spectrum, and that's because while some tenets of Marinetti's Futurist Manifesto were reactionary, the core of the Futurist project was not. The one thing that I think the Futurist movement deserves a lot of praise for is that it brought into the mainstream a newfound optimism for the future. They glorified technological advancement because they saw good in it. They celebrated human ingenuity as a freeing force. Over 100 years later, though, I struggle to find that sense of optimism, at least regards to the modern internet. It seems like there's a roadblock on every road to progress, or any progress that's been made on the internet is being ratcheted backwards. When corporations put the onus of their growth onto the shoulders of its users, nothing good can come of it. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing more and more of lately. While doing research for this video, I came across one article that I think perfectly encapsulates where we're headed. We are living through the end of the useful internet. The future is informed discussion behind locked doors, in discords and private fora, with the public-facing web increasingly filled with detritus generated by LLMs, bearing only a stylistic resemblance to useful information. Finding unbiased and independent product reviews, expert tech support, and all manner of helpful advice will now resemble the process by which one now searches for illegal sports streams or pirated journal articles. The decades of real human conversation posted at places like Reddit will prove useful training material for the mindless bots and deceptive marketers that replace it. And while the recent blackouts by several subreddits are certainly admirable, it doesn't change the fact that Reddit and all of the other companies I've talked about have ownership of these platforms. They are businesses who have a legal obligation to maximize their profit for their investors and can make whatever changes they like, regardless of our own feelings. But nonetheless, this would be the end of the internet as we know it. Entire networks of people, incredibly passionate people across all sorts of sites, are at risk of breaking down or eroding away or hiding in some shadowy corner. And that's just such a sad and unthinkable prospect. It's crucial to address these trends to ensure that the internet remains a vibrant and inclusive space for innovation and collaboration. By advocating for this openness, supporting developers and independent creators, and demanding transparency, we can hopefully work towards a more interconnected and user-friendly internet that actually enriches our lives. I've been 1C2. Thanks for watching.
All right, well, 1C2, you are getting a sub. Is that Monster trucks are killing the planet, our roads, and us.
Oh, look, Joe Biden in an electric Hummer.
It's
So
Joe
cool.
Biden.
Hey, look, a Cybertruck.
Joe Biden.
So cool. Oh, wow, even Ford, Dodge, and GM are getting in on this. Those Super Bowl ads sure were something. No matter where you look, everyone, Congress, companies, your uncle, everyone is screaming about how electric
Fraggle Rock.
vehicles are the future of transportation and humanity's saving grace with regards to climate change. You can even see this optimism among investors. Take Tesla's market cap, for example, which is one way of estimating a company's worth. Even the most established car brands out there don't even come close to Tesla. And while electric vehicles certainly do have a place in our transition away from fossil fuels, these, dare I say, monsters don't. Or at least they shouldn't. This is not futurism. These types of vehicles are the manifestation of all that is wrong with American transportation and our relationship with cars.
Sing it, brother.
Sick on a pig. Slapping the word electric in front of a Ram or F-150 doesn't disguise the fact that there are huge problems associated with these big trucks.
Yeah, we
Actually,
don't need
that's not even
most of
completely
them.
accurate. It's really more like putting lead paint on a pig, because electrifying these vehicles actually makes some problems even worse. Okay, but maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Let's take
You
a
might
trip
be.
back some...
Okay, before we watch this whole thing, monster trucks are killing our planet, our roads, and us, which I think is true. It's going to be interesting to see what he says at the end, but I personally think there's just way too many trucks. I don't think they're useless, but I do think that trucks themselves are built as like an alternative to an SUV, although they're usually shown like someone doing work in them. The person that's driving it just wants to think that they're doing work, or like does just enough work to justify it to themselves. But in reality, like most people I know, I ask them to use their truck because I want to make sure they at least get one day's work out of it. So if you know someone with a truck and they don't like literally use it every day for work, where you like see that they're doing that, definitely ask them at least to borrow their truck. You don't have to like ask them to help you move. Just say like, I'll give you $100 and a pizza, and I'm gonna drive your truck for a day to move myself. Because they fucking don't use it, and that's what trucks are for, to move shit around. I guess that's probably his that would be my takeaway to all y'all, and that's my guess. I like to guess before these, kind of what their takeaway is going to be. So, too big. They're just like, they're not actually built for what they're supposed to do. They're a luxury vehicle, like he said. Lead paint on a pig. That's so weird. So, yeah, for actually doing work, they don't need like a million cubic foot cab and like 17 cameras and stuff like that. You can use the single bed. It's actually probably better to have a smaller, lighter truck in the front, because then you're not hauling all that seat along with whatever's in the fucking truck bed.
40-odd years, back to 1975. Congress just enacted the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, giving the federal government more of a license to regulate energy supply and demand, in response to the oil crisis a couple years earlier. This included new corporate average fuel economy standards, or CAFE standards, which aim to improve the fuel economy of future cars sold within the United States and to ideally decrease American reliance on oil. However, nestled within these standards was a little loophole that is still haunting us to this day. In it, there are two major classifications for consumer vehicles: passenger cars and light trucks. Light trucks were originally meant to target work vehicles more, trucks that consistently hauled materials from one job site to another, and therefore were given increased leniency with regards to their fuel economy standards. However, automakers took notice of this. They started making more and more vehicles that fit within this new category of light truck, in order to skirt the more stringent fuel economy standards for regular passenger vehicles. Plus, they were able to make a bigger profit margin on these bigger vehicles, so it was really a win-win. Soon, SUVs and pickups of all forms, from Chevy Silverados to Subaru Outbacks, emerged to fill the category of light truck. Even as CAFE standards have been updated over the years, they still allowed and frankly incentivized the production of these larger and larger vehicles. In 2011, for example, CAFE standards were updated to the footprint-based model, which would calculate a vehicle's target fuel efficiency using an inverse regression model rather than having set targets for light trucks and passenger cars broadly. And automakers at the time knew it was up then too. Both Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz publicly remarked about how these rules firmly favor the production of bigger and bigger SUVs and pickup trucks.
They were like, oh, we know what we're going to do. You guys want some trucks? Fuck yeah.
Even further. Again, it was a similar story as before. The bigger the vehicle, the more money a car company can make, while also not having to worry about fuel economy standards nearly as much. Back in 2021, Biden's EPA introduced improved fuel economy standards for passenger cars, which was celebrated as a big climate win, but Biden's administration left the loophole open.
Idiot.
But so what, you might ask? This is America, land of the free, home of those who love big-ass shit. Is it really hurting anything?
Yes,
or
it's killing
anyone?
more people,
Well,
and it's killing
yes,
more
for one,
environment.
there's pollution, like I mentioned before. Also, these bigger
Frontovers.
cars are most definitely putting more of a strain on their drivers' pocketbooks when they could be designed not to do that.
Yeah, that too.
Plus, there's the fact that these vehicles have gotten...
That is one that is not brought up fucking enough, is that I thank you, 1C2, yes, baby, yes, I love this. The fact that people don't realize that when they buy an SUV and they really like it, it makes them feel really good, it's more expensive than the equivalent car. If you could do the same things in a car, it's also going to be less fuel efficient in the SUV and like only beneficial when you need the all-wheel drive, which you can typically get in a car for less money. So, overall, more on maintenance, more on gas, more on purchase, more on insurance, more on Nick. That's what it is. Ah, fuck, man.
heavier over time. And the heavier the vehicle, the more wear and tear it will inflict onto road infrastructure.
There you go.
You know that meme about how Roman
more.
roads have lasted us thousands of years, and yet modern engineers don't know how to build a road for ship? Well, the reason for that is that Romans didn't have cars. Everything was horse-drawn. They didn't have these multi-ton machines
part of it, yeah.
going across roads by the thousands upon thousands every second. This means that more tax dollars need to be spent on maintaining roads throughout the country, whereas other forms of transportation wouldn't incur nearly as much in terms of maintenance expenses. Plus, these big trucks are much more space inefficient than regular passenger cars, which in turn means that they take up more space on the roads and on a macro scale can make traffic even worse than it already is. And also, these bigger vehicles pose another issue. They're just flat out dangerous. Between 2010 and 2020, pedestrian deaths increased by a whopping 54% compared to an increase of 13% for other traffic deaths. And many organizations, like the Governor's Highway Safety Association, have directly called out the increase in sales of larger and larger SUVs and pickup trucks as a prime factor.
I'm gonna leave this on for a sec.
Vehicles have more blind spots and are more likely to inflict more severe injuries upon collision. Related to this, last month, some kind soul from the Fuck Cars subreddit actually calculated how much visibility a driver would have in a variety of different vehicles. To my surprise, and the surprise of many others, there are actually several trucks on our roads right now that have about as much visibility as an M1 Abrams tank. Due to the hood size and the height of most trucks, you can easily imagine a situation in which a driver wouldn't have a clue if a child accidentally fell or strayed in front of one of these trucks. And when you top that with the fact that most truck owners don't even use their trucks all that often for explicitly truck things, you start to wonder why drive a truck in the first place. Well, the fact of the matter is, motor companies knew how to market these things. Soccer moms get a luxurious 6 rows of seating for all the kids, a storage unit for groceries, and, heated seats. Dads, on the other hand, get a big, macho, obviously not a phallic metaphor, driving machine where you can do such crazy things as driving on gravel, tailgating, and other manly stuff. Millions of Americans were sold a product that they don't actually need, that motor companies made them think they needed so that they could make more money off of them. And so, trucks have all sorts of harmful implications for those that drive them, for those around them, and for the environment. But surely throwing a battery on one of these bad boys could ameliorate something in that list, no? Well, yes, but Also, no. Remember, the bigger the car, the heavier the car. And when you throw a gigantic battery at an F-150, it gets even heavier compared to a combustion engine F-150. Electric Hummers, like the one Grandpappy Joe was filmed driving, weigh over 9,000 pounds. By contrast, a Toyota Corolla only weighs around 3,000 pounds. And even though a Corolla burns gas to move, the electric Hummer, due to higher emissions from production and due to America's fossil fuel-reliant energy grid, ends up being worse for the environment overall despite being fully electric. Of course, it is better than driving a classic gas Hummer around with their notoriously low MPGs if we're strictly looking at CO2 emissions, but relying on these Goliath EVs will exponentially increase the demand for metals like lithium, nickel, and cobalt. And by the way, there are ample human rights abuses linked to the mining of cobalt, not to mention the detrimental environmental effects of mining all of these metals. There are a myriad of ways that these mining operations harm ecosystems and the people who live there. And assuming America's demand for this class of vehicle doesn't shift, some estimates say that we'll need 3 times the lithium mined to keep up with demand. And that's not even considering the fact that these bigger EVs will put significantly more stress on America's power grid, despite other options out there that will do the same thing as one of these big SUVs, but for a fraction of the energy cost. If we want to take the climate crisis seriously and slash carbon emissions as much as possible, we really need to think about what kinds of electric transportation we should be incentivizing. The lithium that's used to make the battery that's in the electric Hummer could have been used to make 3 smaller EVs. Or you could have made 240 batteries for electric bikes. Or if you take the batteries of 2 Hummers, you could make a freaking electric bus. All of these options move exponentially more people, making more efficient use of our metal and energy supply. However, at least at the federal level, our laws haven't been updated to really incentivize the use of more energy-efficient modes of transportation outside of electric cars. Not to mention the need to invest in the infrastructure for these other modes of transportation, but that's another story. For example, the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act extended tax credits for new EVs and introduced tax credits for used EVs, which is good, I'm not going to deny that, but a good electric bike could feasibly replace the need for a car in many places, and it would undeniably be the more environmentally conscious choice. But too bad, you're out of luck if you think you're going to get a tax credit for that. And let's not forget that big trucks and SUVs were already heavy to begin with, and not much has changed with regards to their size as we move to electric. So adding even more pounds to them with these gigantic batteries will give these vehicles more inertia, and therefore will make roads even more dangerous for everyone, from drivers to cyclists to pedestrians. And same as before, it'll cost more to maintain roads if vehicles trend ever heavier. And to be fair, there are some governments taking on this issue at a smaller scale. Washington, D.C., for example, has required that those who own vehicles weighing over 6,000 pounds pay an additional $500 annual registration fee in order to disincentivize the use of big trucks on their roads. But solutions like this require much larger scale change. The US shouldn't just be targeting expanded EV use, but should really be targeting electric vehicles of lower weight classes or investing in alternative modes of transportation to reduce America's car dependence. Between 1990 and 2021, the number of registered motor vehicles on American roads has gone up by about 90 million. This means in order to keep traffic flowing at a somewhat decent pace, more and more asphalt needs to be laid down in order to compensate, inducing more demand for cars, which then induces more demand for lanes, etc., etc. And eventually we reach a limit to this rat race. The infrastructure of the 20th century was never designed with this many cars in mind, and so traffic is just going to keep getting worse and worse unless we invest in more efficient ways of moving people. And by making our modes of transportation all the more efficient, this will make reaching our climate goals all the more easier. Taking on climate change is going to require us to reevaluate much of how we live our lives. And again, while EVs have their place, they are not a silver bullet, especially these monster EVs. So in summary, big trucks suck. Very few people actually need this class of vehicle, and our insistence that we do has actually made our roads more pothole-ridden and less safe for everyone. Anyhow, I've been 1C2. Thanks for watching.
When you think of the term crime drama, what comes to mind? Do you think of Roger Daltrey screaming over a picturesque Miami backdrop? Or maybe a certain pair of iconic percussive clunks? Or maybe your mind drifts to the streets of New York, mafia gangsters, pinstripe suits, Tommy guns. Or maybe you begin to picture a dilapidated RV parked in the middle of the New Mexican desert. Whether it's a procedural drama, a western, a whodunit, or even true crime, our media often paints crime as something extraordinary, in that it is beyond the ordinary, taking place in a reality divorced from typical civilized society. Although crime is a relatively uncommon thing in most of our day-to-day lives, especially violent crime, it's still an extremely pervasive fascination in our media, bordering on obsession. Crime can take many forms. It can be downright evil, mysterious, suspenseful, horrific, addictive, chaotic, cathartic, high stakes, menacing, self-destructive, or even sexy and badass, i.e., anything but dull. And as you can see, crime in its many forms really runs the gamut in terms of all the genres and subgenres that it touches. Honestly, if you're looking for a way to spice up a screenplay, adding some sort of criminal element does the trick a lot of the time. Rarely, though, do you see crime painted like this.
¡Al ladro! ¡Al ladro! ¿Qué te sucede?
Stripped down, mundane, even kinda pathetic. This isn't some high-octane action scene from a heist film. It's just a guy trying to get his bike back. And even though on the surface exhibiting crime this way seems awfully pedestrian, this film taught me more about crime than any of the other movies and TV shows I referenced just a minute ago. Now you're probably wondering, alright 1C2, you've hyped this up long enough. What's the name of the movie? Bicycle Thieves. The movie is called Bicycle Thieves, or Ladri di Biciclette if you're in a particularly Italian mood. Directed by Vittorio De Sica. The movie takes place in 1948, in a tattered Rome recovering from the physical, political, and economic scars of World War II. All of it is filmed on location. A quintessential work from the Italian neorealist movement, Bicycle Thieves set out to capture the everyday experiences of working people in post-war Italy. The good, yes, but particularly the bad and the ugly. Poverty, exploitation, injustice, desperation. Hell, even the actors themselves were mostly amateurs. Non-professional actors local to the area who had probably lived or seen similar stories firsthand. Lamberto Maggiorani, who plays the lead Antonio Ricci, was himself just a factory worker. Enzo Staiola, who plays Antonio's son Bruno, was helping his real-life father sell flowers on the street near where the production was filming. The plot is remarkably simple. The film's protagonist, Antonio Ricci, is a working-class man struggling to provide for his wife and 2 kids. After a prolonged stint of unemployment, through sheer luck, Antonio lands a job as a bill poster. However, there's a catch. The job requires him to own a bicycle. Hearing this, Antonio's wife decides to sell her dowry sheets, one of the few valuables the family has left, in order to buy back Antonio's bicycle from the pawn shop. But just when things were looking up for Antonio and his family, his bicycle is stolen on his first day on the job. The thief gets away with the bike, and the police tell Antonio that there's practically nothing they can do. It's just a bicycle, after all. The rest of the movie follows Antonio and his son Bruno as they try to surmount the near impossible task of finding this lost bicycle somewhere along the streets of Rome. A real needle in a haystack. After exhaustively looking for the bicycle all day, and just when things were beginning to get grim, Antonio has another miraculous stroke of luck.
he and his son just happened to run into the bicycle thief on the street, who we learn is named Vittorio. After Antonio chases Vittorio down and threatens him to return his stolen bicycle, Vittorio's mother and Vittorio's neighbors come out onto the street to defend him. He's a good kid with a clean record, his mother asserts. In the midst of all this, Bruno runs off to grab a police officer, who breaks things up with his presence. He then advises Antonio that if he did decide to press charges against Vittorio, he would have no case. Antonio has no witnesses, the bicycle is still nowhere to be found, and Vittorio's neighbors would be certain to provide a convincing alibi. Feeling dejected, Antonio storms off. Narratively, this moment is incredibly powerful. Despite Antonio doing everything right, everything he's supposed to, and getting extremely lucky multiple times on top of that, he is still ultimately defeated. He has exhausted all possible avenues of getting his bike back. The one thing he needs to keep his job. The key to providing a good life for his family and escaping the poverty they've known for so long. It's hard not to let yourself imagine what life would be like for this family if things turned out a little differently. With the money from Antonio's new job, the Ricci's could buy back their sheets, patch the holes in their clothes, buy new clothes. Bruno, who works as a mechanic at a gas station, could quit his job and have a proper childhood. They could afford to eat out at restaurants more often, rubbing shoulders with those fancy folk who turned their noses up at them earlier in the story. It's a life of unprecedented comfort and possibility. After his altercation with Vittorio and his neighbors, Antonio